Here we go with day number 2 of the 30 teams in 30 days NBA edition. Let's see who we land on. Who's it gonna be? We got. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. All right, we got a good team here. Minnesota Timberwolves. Cavs, obviously, because that was the team from last video. If you missed that video, go check it out. Um, yeah, let's just get into this. Last season, if you don't remember, the Timberwolves went on a run that should be remembered by a lot of people, and they went a lot further, especially for their standards. And yeah, I'm going to diss on the Timberwolves a little bit in this video. Yeah, they're my rival. So what? Um, but yeah, the Timberwolves had a great run last season. They knocked out the defending champs. They took out, I forget who the other team it was. I think it was the Thunder. So they took out two really good teams in the playoffs last season to go play the Mavs in the conference finals. End up losing, obviously, but I this season they've been a little bit disappointing, and I'm going to say a little bit because yeah, they're the 7th seed, and so that's really disappointing. However, there's a lot of good teams in the West, so it's really hard to want them to truly be a team that is a top 4 seed when there are so many good teams in the Western Conference. But either way, I do think the Timberwolves have had a disappointing year for their standards. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, they traded away Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks and picked up Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Julius Randle has been fine, I guess, and Dante DiVincenzo has had a pretty down year for what we're used to with him. Um, but the biggest problem with that trade was the fact that they got rid of their staple that they've used as their main guy, other than Anthony Edwards, of course, as their main guy for so long, and so that was something that, in my eyes, I just think was detrimental to this team, and just emotionally, I think it hurt this team a lot. And so, coming up to this trade deadline, just a couple weeks ago, everyone was expecting them to make a move. That was a team that, in a lot of people's eyes, they just needed like one or two more smaller pieces to make themselves true contenders again. But they ended up not doing that. They were one of 4 teams who did not make a single move come the trade deadline. And that kind of surprised a lot of people. There was some talk about Julius Randle getting traded. There was some talk about other things going down. Rudy Gobert, I'm not going to talk about Rudy Gobert, but um, there was a lot of talk in Minnesota, especially among Timberwolves fans. Everyone wanted something to happen for them, and it just never did. But one of the things that they do have that's going well for them is Anthony Edwards, obviously. And Anthony Edwards is one of the best players in the league. He is. He's one of the most entertaining players. He's one of the most athletic players. He's going to be really, really good for the next 10, 15 years. And because of that, I do think the Timberwolves are going to gain some ground in the free agent market and in the trade market. I do think that they're going to be able to hopefully find a running mate better than Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle to go alongside him. Oh, maybe they'll get a point guard. Yeah, so that's a really interesting. Obviously, they also drafted Rob Dillingham. I meant to say that earlier. I really like Rob Dillingham a lot, and I'm curious to see how he does. I haven't watched a lot of him, but I do like him coming out of college. I liked him as a prospect. So I think that will probably be a good duo for hopefully once he develops. Just looking at this payroll, and I knew that the Timberwolves were a really expensive team, and now I'm really understanding why. Rudy Gobert's contract is huge. Julius Randle's contract is huge. Jaden McDaniels' contract is also very big, and it's just going to keep getting bigger. Naz Reid's contract is fine for Naz Reid. Obviously, he's a fan favorite there in Minnesota. Dante DiVincenzo's contract is it's not horrible, but it's not great, especially because he hasn't played well. Mike Conley is old. I don't think he should be making that much anymore. Rob Dillingham, his rookie contract, okay. And then other than that, you got Nikhil Alexander Walker, who's on a very good contract, very team friendly contract. But he's expiring this year. And so the question that I'm asking right now is what on earth are the Timberwolves going to do next season, especially? And I think step one of that is trade Julius Randle. And the reason I say that let's start from the top. Karl Anthony Towns was traded for Julius Randle, and I never have understood it. I never thought Julius Randle was like a perfect fit in Minnesota. Um, which is why I kind of questioned it at first, especially trading Karl Anthony Towns, who's had such a great year this year too. And like looking back on it in hindsight, like obviously it still doesn't look like a very good trade for Minnesota, but like maybe they would have been better off this season if they just kept Cat and ate all the money that they would have owed. So that has always confused me, and so I do think Julius Randle is gonna probably, hopefully, for the Timberwolves' sake, be the first guy gone this offseason. I think he'll end up somewhere else. He has a player option, I think, for 30 million, if I was looking at that correctly. Um, so that's interesting. I think Julius Randle is probably going to need to be the first guy gone. I think the second guy you need to let go is Mike Conley. So one, you can get Rob Dillingham in that starting lineup and developing more and more. And but two, because Mike Conley's old, you don't need him on that team anymore. And there's a lot of teams that could use a backup point guard. So those are the two guys, in my opinion, that they need to focus on this summer. I think they're going to add some bench pieces. Nikhil Alexander Walker's on an expiring deal. I don't think he'll stay around, especially if the Timberwolves don't have money. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes this offseason. How far do I think the Timberwolves can go realistically this season? I would probably argue that they're not going to be past a second round team. And the reason I say that is because you have the Thunder, who are dominant in this Western Conference, the Nuggets, who are experienced, the Grizzlies and Rockets, who are young, upcoming teams. The Grizzlies were injured last year. Like they have momentum right now. They're young and they believe in themselves. The Lakers, LeBron and Luca. I don't think that's going to be the greatest team ever, like a lot of people do. The Clippers are performing better than a lot of people expected, and they made a good trade or two at the deadline. Um, the Mavericks, if Anthony Davis gets healthy, are going to be good. The Kings picked up Zach LaVine. They're looking well. They're probably going to be pretty solid. After that, I don't know, but those 9 teams, I think, are probably the best 9, and I think it wouldn't be a surprise if any of them made it past the second round. But what I will say is, I think realistically, the Timberwolves aren't uh, a second round team. I guess that's probably not the best way to put it. I would say they will. They more than likely will not get past the second round, and that kind of sucks. And that looks really bad on management in Minnesota because they just upset 2 teams, this past year. And man, like trading Cat, I honestly think was a much bigger deal than a lot of people realize. I think trading him was, I said this earlier, was emotionally damaging to the team. It was structurally damaging to the team. It was just not a good trade. And Julius Randle isn't a guy that you typically would trade Karl Anthony Towns for, who is younger, who is actually, is he younger? I don't know. But anyways, Julius Randle is an all-star. So I don't want to like be dissing on Julius Randle this whole video. Like he's still a good player. It just wasn't the right fit. And I do think he was the odd one out in New York, which is, we'll get into the next later, so I'm not going to go too crazy on that. But realistically, I think the Timberwolves are probably not better than a second round team, simply because I don't think they're better than a lot of teams in this Western Conference, and the standings show that. I'll end by saying that I do still think, obviously, the Timberwolves have a bright future. Anthony Edwards is going to be around for a long time, most likely, unless something horrible were to happen where he gets traded like Luka did. But I don't think any other manager is dumb enough to do that, like Nico Harrison. But um, yeah, Timberwolves are going to be fine. I think Anthony Edwards is going to be able to recruit other players at some point in the future, near future, I don't know, but at some point. Um, yeah. So with all that being said, Minnesota Timberwolves, what do you guys think? I'd love it if you'd subscribe. It would help me out. I'm just getting started in the YouTube stuff, so subscribers is, I mean, obviously, I'm just looking to see who would be interested in listening to some random guy yap. So, yeah, thanks for watching.